I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Palm Springs Public Arts Commission on Thursday, September 4th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Jay, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Armstrong,
Present.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Loya, Commissioner Silvera,
Here.
Commissioner Kibbe, Commissioner Gascon,
Here.
Commissioner Landy,
Here.
Commissioner Hanner,
Present.
Commissioner Jadon.
Here.
Commissioner Janan?
Cameron AC.
Yeah, Janan's your
Cameron
first
Easton.
name.
Thank you. I understand.
Okay.
I'm still practicing. We have quorum, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I would like to make one revision to the agenda. We have a presentation from Wayne Olson, the Chief Economic Development Officer, and he needs to leave. So we're going to move his presentation to the beginning before the election and my comments. Jay, can we do it before public comments, or are there any public comments?
It does not appear we have any public comments,
Okay.
Mr.
Do
Chair.
I need to read the statement regardless?
Just to be safe, we should read
Okay.
the statement.
Public comments. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Public Arts Commission on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission, and agenda items if a member of the public cannot be present later in the meeting at the time the item is heard by the commission. Additionally, members of the public may address the commission on each item listed on the posted agenda at the time each item is heard. Although the Public Arts Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are assigned for each speaker. And we do not have public comment?
I'll just ask if anyone online has public comments to please raise your hand. Seeing none. Anyone in the audience? There are no public comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Can we make a motion to accept the agenda with moving the presentation H1 up to E?
I would like to make a motion to accept the agenda with the modification of moving presentation H1, the Chief Economic Development Officer, to item E.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I would like to introduce Mr. Wayne Olson. Wayne and I met right when he started, and we immediately hit it off. We come from similar background. We understand how business works. We understand how branding works, and our personalities click. So we would have regular coffees just to toss ideas back and forth at each other. In my time getting to know Wayne personally and professionally, he really grabbed on the idea of what makes Palm Springs important. And one of the things he kept talking about is art and culture, art and culture, art and culture. And so then after we had Dana come and speak to the commission, the building officer or official, Jay and I were discussing, we said, let's start having sort of city officials come to the art commission meeting to help educate you all on certain important things. Now, the reason why I thought it was important to kick off this term with Wayne is the purpose of the Art Commission, and this goes to our ordinances. The purpose of the Palm Springs Public Art Commission is to develop and maintain a visual arts program for the residents and visitors of the city to add to the economic viability of the community and to enhance the environment and unique character of Palm Springs by providing for the acquisition and maintenance of quality works of public art. So the very first thing is the economic viability of the community. There are many other reasons to do public art. And there is, as I've always said, there's public art and then there's art in public, which are two different things. We are funded by economic development dollars. That's where the majority of our budget comes from. And so that is our main charge, is the economic viability of the community. So that's why I thought it was important to have Wayne come and talk about not only what is the economic viability, what are the economic challenges to Palm Springs, but also what his plan is to build the economic development for the city, knowing that the plan has been approved by all council. So this is what our charter is moving forward. So, Wayne.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you for that kind introduction, Chairman Armstrong. Welcome to staff as well and those online. As for the record, my name is Wayne Olson. I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer for the City of Palm Springs. I started here in January of '24 with the edict to open the Office of Economic Development and grow our city local economy. So what I like to do when I talk about our discipline is to do some level setting in the room. I think each city discipline assumes that everybody knows everything about what they do. I don't want to start there. I would like to start with the idea that maybe somebody doesn't know or think about economic development every day like me and maybe some others that are here in the room. So I'm going to start very basic and then build upon that. It's not meant to be pedestrian. It's just I want to do some level setting for you. So I'd like to introduce you to think a little bit about what is a local economy and how do we function in a local economy. And the way I think about a local economy and the way our consultants think about, my economic development strategic consultants think about a local economy is as an ecosystem, right? So the ecosystem is interdependent. It has inputs and outputs. It has resources. And sometimes it's well-resourced, sometimes it's under-resourced. And ecosystem can be healthy or unhealthy. You can draw very large or you can draw it very small. So you can have an public art ecosystem, or you could have a local community economy, which is the ecosystem. I work on the local economy community level ecosystem. So what are the places where the city can influence either the local resources by providing additional dollars or making ground fertile for the seeds of local economic growth? But that's where I wanted to start to sort of ground us all in that concept. So moving from that then and building on it is what is economic development? And my discipline is really about growing that ecosystem. There's a fundamental assumption. One of my colleagues challenged me once to say, is there a fundamental assumption that it's about growth? And it is. Economic growth occurs because we are building businesses, employment, jobs, dollars, and ultimately investment into our communities. So there's a fundamental assumption in my discipline that we are growth oriented. That doesn't mean it's irresponsible growth, but that growth is the goal. And we have several tools in which to do that. And the way we've traditionally talked about that is business retention, business expansion, and business recruitment. Those are fairly obvious by their statement. They're self-defining. But we develop tools and incentives and programs based on these three categories. What I like to do is to get it kind of out of the technocratic and think about it how we might all think about our communities. And so I think about what are we really are talking about here, right? What do we think about when we go to an Austin or an Aspen or a P-Town or a anywhere in the world that you like to visit? What are you really going there for, right? And I call it a cool place, right? You want a cool place that's unique, it's interesting, it's something you can come back and tell your friends about, it's storytelling, and I call them bragging rights now, right? It's Instagram and those moments where you want a place to take a picture and share with your friends and kind of say, look at me, I'm in a great spot. And I don't mean to be minimalizing of this. This is actually really what I think this is all about, right? The investment comes when people want to come to your community for whatever reason that is. It can be business, it can be arts and culture, it can be healthcare, so you can build that ecosystem with a variety of these. But ultimately, I think this is sort of an easy way to think about it, a more layman's way to think about economic development. So what makes a place cool? Like I said, it's sort of this unique, interesting storytelling and what I call bragging rights. And in my mind, when I think about a town and I want to go there, is arts and culture, right? I'm going to go take a picture next to the Bean. I'm going to go take a picture next to fill in the blank of whatever your favorite public art is. Or I'm going to mention a theater show that I saw. Or I'm going to mention a really cool jazz band that I saw at a bar. And that whole umbrella of arts and culture falls into this, what makes a place great and how can we draw investment into our community. So let me build that a little bit further. These are numbers that you may have seen. This is from a study done by the Desert Arts Council, Kristen Dole. She presented these numbers last year. They're a few years old because her study was backward looking, but we haven't been able to update the data. But as we look at economic development, we want to look at data. What are we developing and what is our investment in economic development creating? Well, arts and culture, we want to start treating arts and culture and look at arts and culture as a business. Right? It's an economy unto itself. And there's a lot of good data on this, 110 million in economic activity. This is by Coachella Valley, by the way. 64 million in event-related expenditures, 46 million in spending by arts and culture organizations, 19.5 million in local tax revenue. These numbers compete with some of the bigger entities in town in terms of economic development metrics. And then I wanted to zero in on that 1,623 jobs that was data-driven analysis on the Coachella Valley. I'm sorry, I don't have Palm Springs specific numbers, but I think we can extrapolate from there. So 1,600 jobs. That's almost as many as the convention center is predicted to produce as a result of the investment there, which is also an important investment because that's a community gathering place as well. But so my answer to is arts and culture a priority? Yes, they're businesses. My job is to retain, expand, and to recruit businesses. If arts and culture, if we agree with the argument that arts and culture is business, then it's part of my job and part of my purview and therefore part of my scope and ultimately part of my budget. So that's sort of the argument that I make, that business, arts, artists, culture, they employ people locally, they purchase supplies, services from nearby businesses, they build that ecosystem, they're an input into that system. And then of course, the employees that we're trying to attract that don't have anything to do with arts and culture, they want cool things to do too, right? If you want to work in a community, you're going to want a really fun place to bring either your kids or your spouse or your family that's visiting in town. You want to be able to take some Instagram pictures. You want to brag about your community. And I think that a lot of times we're doing that in an arts and culture vertical without really communicating it in that way or explicitly communicating it in that way. So ultimately, arts and culture brings people, right? When we go to a town, we're going because we're going to go to see a show. We're going to go eat at a really nice restaurant or not so nice restaurant that we heard had good food, a dive bar, maybe that's really cool. So these numbers here, I think, are a real easy way to demonstrate that arts and culture as a business brings the people, right? 86%, lost my page here, excuse me. 86% of arts and culture attendees agreed that the activity or venue where they were surveyed is inspiring a sense of pride to the neighborhood or community. You can read the other data there, but the one I like is 84% feel that they would have a sense of loss if they lost arts and culture in their community. That's a lot. 84%, that's 8.5 people out of 10 consider arts and culture that important that they would feel like it's a loss if it was lost out of the community. So when I talk about budgeting for arts and culture, these are the kinds of numbers. And then if we want to get really direct, so what? Well, it's a fairly simple set of equations. More jobs equal more people equal more wallets equal more revenue, and more revenue equals what I'm worried about, which is market confidence, right? Is Palm Springs a safe place to invest in? Can I bring my business here? Can I open a restaurant and ensure that I'm going to be making money? Can I open my next hotel and ensure that people are going to come? So arts and culture becomes that fabric in which those people participate. And it's important for, like I said, employees and families of employees. Are there going to be things for my kids to do? Are there interesting things to put on my Christmas card or my holiday card? So that's where we're headed with this sort of argument. And then, of course, at the end of the day, more market confidence equals more investment. And then the cycle starts over. If we get more investment, we get more tax revenue. And so around and around we go. So that's sort of how I'm framing arts and culture. So as more investment occurs, that ecosystem starts to grow, right? So as a result, we're organizing our ecosystem under an economic development strategic framework. In the group I hired, Civil Economics, a gentleman named Uday Ram and Adam Fowler are the founders of that organization. They've been working for almost a year now on developing our strategic framework, and we're building a vision and 5, 6 principles, depending on where we are in the draft. But I wanted to share at least one of those that highlights public arts specifically, the arts and culture of our community. I'll walk you through the principles now. Principle A is expand the city's economic development capacity. I think in some ways we're talking about that here, which is can we do what we want to get done with the current resources? Do we have enough staff? Do we have enough dollars? If we don't have enough dollars, where are they going to come from? Are the processes easy? Is it easy to get a piece of public art approved? Is it difficult to? These types of things, we want to get our house in order and then help our community get their house in order in terms of the economy. So reinvigorate the business climate. This is a business retention expansion effort. We're going to invest in our local groups that are struggling. If they're not, we'll support them in marketing efforts and all the other things that economic development does. Principle C is bolster existing industries. And again, this is to assist. Primarily, we are appreciative and value our tourism and hospitality partners. They are our driving source of revenue. This isn't about replacing that. This is about growing on that and using that as our foundation on which we would grow. So our induced economic development that would come from our hospitality, tourism, arts and culture, our tourists, our visitors, and even our residents is part of that. Seed and nurture emerging clusters. I think this is also something that fits in with what you're thinking about. What is it that we want to do and what do we want to demonstrate to really the world? We're a world-class brand. What are those things that we want to show and demonstrate that we value and we take pride in and that we invest in? And then finally, strengthen community assets and infrastructure. And this files, in my mind, very cleanly within the Public Arts Commission purview. You know, you are building our infrastructure. When somebody gets off the plane at the airport and they drive down Tockwitz and they see a community with public art lining its street, that says something different than somebody that gets off a plane and drives through, you know, not beautiful urban landscape. So the fact that you can get off the plane, get in a cab or an Uber or alternative transportation and see public art the minute you, actually I think the minute you hit the airport, because you have a collection there, we are demonstrating our community value and that we want that investment in our community. So just wanted to share this principle with you that, and again, we have 5 principles. This is the bolster existing industries, and we actually call out specifically tourism, arts, and culture. That Palm Springs has this unique character and appeal, right? Because the other thing is, as we get more digital and we can experience things differently, place becomes even more important, right? Because now I'm going to be very selective about where I can go because a lot of my experience I can get online. But now if you have something special, if you have a bean, if you've got a, you know, you'll have to help me out with a lot of the national public art pieces, but the things I think of, you know, you're going, the St. Louis Arch was a public art, work of public arts, the PWA. So those types of things can become ideas behind public art. It doesn't just have to be about, which is important, sculptural representation of artists in our community, but we can think about it as an economic driver in and of itself, both from a business perspective and as a tourism perspective. So Initiative 3.3, develop a unique value proposition for the Palm Springs arts and culture ecosystem. This is where I think we need your help, and this is where we need your leadership and help in understanding where those resources should go. I have several action items. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to run and get a drink of water. Develop a unique value proposition for the Palm Springs arts and culture ecosystem. Several action items under that will be developed over the next 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years going forward. So just wanted to share this with you that public arts and the Public Arts Commission plays an important role in the economic development strategic framework. And I'm open to suggestions and conversation and certainly direction from the commission and of course from Jay, who also has a history and experience in economic development himself. So there's a good set of conditions here that can make this really an excellent resource for economic development. So just wanted to thank some folks, my consultants obviously, and then Kristen Dolan, and some of the facts that you saw were lifted from her reports. I want to give her credit. Gary Armstrong, the chair, and commissioners, thank you for allowing me to be here to speak. And Jay, thanks for inviting me to come, and happy to answer questions. Chair?
I've got a couple questions. And
Sure.
one of them relates to Commissioner Kibbe, because I know you've been working with her on some things. And I know that every big initiative that the city has coming up, there's a component of public art. The airport has public art, the library has public art, and you may not be involved with those too. And then the expansion of the convention center and that promenade component you two are working on. When you do the public art, do you budget for public art to put in there? Or is that something that Jay needs to wave some magic sticks together?
So it's interesting. I think what I've understood over the last 18 months that I've been here, it comes in a variety of ways. It would be my answer, Chair. I've seen where the public art is already pre-programmed, like somebody with Commissioner Kibbe, who is very proactive in the public arts and wanting to demonstrate that value into the community with her project. She's already got it installed in her project. Some other developers anticipate that there will be a request from a public arts commission if they're building into the public sphere. Convention center, I have indicated, and Commissioner Kibbe serves on the stakeholder group as well, but I've indicated that the budget should include a dimension of public art. So where I can and when I can, I do mention it. And then of course, as development occurs, they pay a fee, which then funds the Public Arts Commission.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Wayne? Natasha?
I've been saying this for a long time, but my experience of working with other municipalities throughout California, Southern California, is that the trend is going towards having a dedicated arts and culture department integrated within their cities to focus on this, because ever since the Otis reports on the creative economy have become standard, it's just been taken that arts and culture are a great economic driver, as you said, and municipalities are taking that to heart and really integrating that into their city plans. And so I would like to know if and when, since you put it in one of your initiatives, that we will be having dedicated staff or a dedicated area in our, within the city staff that will be able to concentrate on arts and culture, because we here all love art and culture, but we are just volunteers on an advisory, in an advisory capacity. And so to put this work in, we would need dedicated staff and dedicated resources in the budget for this. So just wanted to know what you have in mind for that, or what you know about that.
Thank you, Commissioner and Chair. Here's what I can tell you. I had some time in Down Valley City, in East Valley City, and they embedded arts and culture inside of economic development. Ultimately, the decision on how arts and culture is managed from a city perspective is up to the city manager. That's his job, is to determine how the administration of the city occurs. It wouldn't occur at my level, it would occur one level up. As we build out the framework for economic development, we've had a lot of conversations about whether arts and culture becomes its own entity within the city and where it sits and how. I wouldn't be the decision maker on that. I have opinions about that. I have professional opinions about that. But I know, and I'm going to ask Jay probably to jump in a little bit because he can identify some of the current resources. But you know, I know we're having these conversations. Some people think that maybe the park board should be the right place for it. It's an ongoing conversation about how the city would manage that piece. But I would agree completely that it needs some dedicated resources for the very reasons that I've shared here. And I think some of the things we're doing in our first principle, if I can remind you, is expand the city's economic development capacity. So that's sort of coded language to say, let's take a look at how many people we need to do what we want to get accomplished, and does that happen in economic development or somewhere else? And if that occurs, then the council has to make a decision ultimately about funding. City manager has to make a decision about how to administer that. So that's where that would start. But that's where I think I'll leave my answer there. And Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Sure,
to that.
there, Commissioner, there could definitely be more resources for public art, particularly as we're getting more into doing installations. And one thing we have found, very beneficial is working with our Park and Recreation Department, who does their own installations, say for benches, playground equipment. So they have some staff, and you see John here typically at this meeting, John Brickley, who's been great. He's been helping out with getting our artwork installed in parks, but that's mostly limited to parks. And so right-of-way, medians, we're working with our facilities department as we can, but it's that expertise with some of the installation, expertise with some of the art processes that would be helpful, and really managing those processes, bringing contractors on board and getting everyone in line. It's project management, it really is. And John is a project manager for the Park and Recreation Department.
Commissioner Kibbe, you have a question.
And other forms of cultural expansion, which I consider to be part of the arts. The public relations, marketing, and branding of that is critical, and I think that's a component that has not happened yet. I know we're very committed within the city to expand our cultural resources, but we really aren't known as a city for having good, sound art and culture resources. You don't go to LA and somebody says, let's go to Palm Springs to see their art. And I think that's part of the growth that we're looking at. I think, I certainly know that's what we're looking at, or what I'm hoping to look at as we expand the convention center area. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Any other questions for Wayne?
I have my cards here, and I'm sure you can get a hold of me in any other way, but I'll leave a few here in case you want to pick them up after the meeting. Just wanted to thank you, Chairman Armstrong, and the commission to allow me to come here and spend a little time. Feel free to reach out on email or text at any time. I'm happy to answer questions. Jay, thanks for the time. Have a nice evening.
Great. Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah.
Next item, remarks from the chair. I'll keep these brief. I just want to quickly talk about two things, and these actually segue from something that Wayne said. I was on vacation in Barcelona 2 weeks ago, and I'd never been to Barcelona before. I'd been to Madrid and Valencia, and went to Barcelona. And Barcelona is, I expected to see a ton of public art, and they don't have it, because the city itself is the art. The architecture is the art. So there are some pieces, but they're just not as magnificent as you'd expect. But I went into Casa Batlló, which is a house that was designed by Gaudi. And he designed the entire house. He was the architect, he was the designer, interior designer, designed the fabrics, the material, everything inside. And it's now a UNESCO site. It's recognized as being unbelievably special. And on the very top floor, there was a sign there, and I took a picture of the sign. And it said, preserve the past, challenge the present, and curate the future. And I thought, that's really our mission as an art commission. Curate the past, or preserve the past, which is Palm Springs is known for historic architecture and a sense of history to the country, the community, and the people. And the artwork, that's what the collection is. The artwork's supposed to represent the people at the time. Challenge the present is art is always challenging the present. And then curate the future, that's what we decide. Now, when I was thinking about this, I was like, the most important one actually is challenge the present, particularly the way we work as a commission. Because right now, we are working on artwork that has been in the commission for 3 years, and it's not quite installed yet. We're working on another piece that was done 25 years ago, which is on the agenda. We'll be discussing that. There's another piece we'll be discussing that I found out about that the Art Commission approved 9 years ago, which is coming up. I was like, where did this come from, Jay? And he said, well, it was approved 9 years ago. Okay. So art does not happen very quickly, which leads to, anyway, so I'll circulate this because I think it's something important that we should always be using as our little brain. But the timing is crucial, and some of the commissioners have been here a while, heard me talk about this, some of the new ones have not. When I signed on as a commissioner, the then city clerk was a guy named Anthony. And he swore me in, and I said, any advice for me, Anthony? And he said, 2 pieces of advice. He paused. He said, 2 pieces of advice. He said, the first one is only make decisions on what is in front of you in the room. He said, you will go into the room knowing things. You will hear things. You may have read something online, but you cannot use that to make a decision. When you are voting, you can only make a decision on what has been given to you in the staff report, by what is given to you by the chair, by what's given to you another commissioner. So if you have experience involving that, and it goes into your decision, you must articulate that in the meeting. And then it is part of the meeting when you state it. Don't just say, oh, well, I know this, but why? And then what that will do is it will help inform the decision-making for the other commissioners as well. And the reason why we must do this is because of the Brown Act. The Brown Act is all about transparency and how decisions are made, and everything must be noted on video and in the minutes. So everything must be decided in the room, okay? The last thing Anthony said to me was, be patient. That stuff does not happen overnight. And he said, a lot of new commissioners get very frustrated, but stuff takes time. And as you see by some of the things we're talking about, they've been on our agenda for years because stuff takes time. Okay? Next item on the agenda is election of the Public Arts Commission Vice Chair for 2025-2026. And I will be reading the script. Okay. Nominations are now in order for the office of Vice Chair. Would someone like to make a nomination for that position?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to place in nomination my colleague, Tina, to be considered by all of us as Vice Chairman of the Commission. I've been impressed by, in the time that we've been on the Commission together, and we came on around the same at the exact same time, actually, impressed by her and Natasia's initiative in surveying the art across the city. Just a few minutes ago, she mentioned that we're still discovering public art across the city. And that type of energy and willingness to engage in a project that may seem never-ending suits well for a leadership role and mentorship under you, Mr. Chairman, to eventually replace you, which is a sad day, which will eventually come. But I think that we could do no better than to prepare for that day by choosing any of our excellent colleagues for this position. And I would like to put in nomination Tina in particular. Thank you.
Are there any further nominations for the office of Vice Chair? No? Seeing none, without objection, nominations are closed. And the nominee is elected by unanimous consent. That's correct, I believe what it says. As long as many are in favor of Tina Gonzalez for Vice Chair may say aye. Those opposed say no, but there's only one nomination, so it says consent. Okay. I'd like to congratulate Tina on Vice Chair for this. Okay. And I would like to state that since our last meeting, Jay and I have been speaking easily daily. We've been meeting probably weekly, and I even got his personal cell phone, so I know how to call him now. The chair as a role is not about picking art or picking colors or anything like that. So much of it, as Jay said, is needed is project manager. So I'm chasing things down, I'm chasing contract information, I'm chasing financial budgets, I'm chasing all these things. And that's why it's crucial to have that. Now, as I said, I have this term and then I have one more term. And I want to be around to help the next chair take on this, because we've had turnover of commissioners and whatever happens and people get termed out. But if in terms of the creativity and the vision, every commissioner has that opportunity to articulate what they want to see. So just think of the chair and the vice chair as really the getting things moving and in place, okay? Items for discussion approval. Finalize members for the committee to be named to the Public Arts Collection and Palm Springs Art and Culture Collection, and schedule meeting dates for the two committee commissioners. Identify pieces in the currently Public Art Collection that should be moved to potential cultural collection. And if you recall, this was, we voted to divide the collection from pieces that are art-related and cultural creative.
Mr. Chair, we still have approval of the minutes,
Oh, we did, I thought we did that already, no?
did we?
Oh, no, we didn't.
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
have that.
I didn't see that. Approval of the minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 3rd, 2025.
Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Back to what I was saying. We voted to bifurcate the collection into pieces that are pure public art and pieces that are cultural artifacts of the city. What we need to do is have two task forces, for lack of better phrasing. Jay will correct me if it's a legal word I need to be using. One will be looking at the existing collection, the catalog of it, and determining which pieces should be moved over to the cultural. When this got picked up by the Palm Springs Post, I was contacted by a number of informed citizens in the city who are very excited by this. And these are people who have worked in the historic component and preservation of the city. And they thought this was a great thing to do because they felt like pieces like the Kennedy bust were getting lost because they're not as sexy and sizzle as art, but there was importance to them. The fact that he was in the city 4 times, he would frequently come here. The piece used to be in the median right in front of City Hall. It was there, and then they moved it to the airport probably 12 years ago. But it's a cultural artifact. It's not necessarily art. So what we need are people to decide which pieces go which way. And then we also need people to look at the ordinances and say, we need to craft ordinances on the acceptability. What's the process? What's the approval process? And then when that happens, we also need to look at the acceptability of the art pieces as well. I pulled up and what I mean by that is if you look at our ordinances, it talks about how things are done. And keep in mind, these ordinances were probably written 25 years ago. And so they talk about types of art. They don't talk about any aesthetic values or anything like that. But they do sort of skip over things that really weren't around then. So there's no discussion of projections. There's no discussion of AI. There's no discussion of these things that will be coming before the Art Commission down the road. Getting these ordinances passed and approved and written and accepted and legally done will probably be an 18-month process. So we're not really doing these for this term or the next term. We're doing them for 5 years. So that to me is the exciting part, is we need people to look at these and say, is this really accurate? As I said, I was reading over the ordinances this afternoon, and I was like, well, that's really inconsistent with what was done here. The ordinances were written, and you can tell by the intent, they were written specifically for the developers. The developers, here, you're paying your money, here's where it goes, and here's how you can get your money back if you want to. Everything else sort of came afterwards, and those were the addendums. And there's a lot of inconsistencies with the addendums with the original framework. That needs to be redone as well. On top of that, Jay and I had a meeting on Tuesday with Wayne and Chris, the head of finance, because I said, we have a big problem with our ordinances and the finances. And the biggest problem is that we do not have a deadline of when developers can ask for their money back. So it's in there saying, you can ask for it back, and here's the process to get it back, and here's how we can improve the artwork, but there's no deadline. So a developer can come after 10 years and say, I want my money back. Give me my money. How are we supposed to budget something carrying money for 10 years? And so we had a meeting on that to say, Wayne, you are out in the field on economic development. What's a fair time? When will developers know that they're going to be taking advantage of their artwork or not? And we also asked Wayne about the numbers. Is the percentage that we're asking for, is that acceptable in the marketplace? And so what's going to happen with that is Chris from finance, and I'll ask Jay to speak on this more, he's going to put that, the city does regular tests. And Jay, can you talk about that a bit?
It's a fee study, so each year you'll see the city council approves fees for the entire city. And to get to those fees, an analysis is done. So the public art fee would be included in a future fee study to try and determine what the cost is to manage the public art properly.
And one of the other things that we talked about is all the money that comes into the commission comes from the developer fees right now. And as developers are taking their money back more frequently than they have in the past, that leaves us with no money to maintain the collection, let alone add to new pieces. And so we sort of asked Wayne and Chris to come up with, we need to get a maintenance fund. How can we get a specific maintenance fund into the public arts fund? So that's one thing that they're looking at as well. And this would be wholly designated. And coincidentally, Jay, I was reading the ordinances, and it says they will develop a maintenance fund that goes into this. So, so that's the stuff that is being taken care of. We don't need to worry about. That's not really our area of expertise anyway. But we need to look at the language and, again, the visionary stuff as well. How is art moving forward? How is public art moving forward in a lot of ways? So we need to develop the two groups. And as I said, the previous one was identify the pieces currently in the collection were Tina, Carlos, Janan, you were the three.
I did want to just make a comment. I was looking back at the minutes from our last meeting, and the names put down from there and the names put down here. The names are switched.
Okay.
So the commissioners under Committee 2 should be under Committee 1 and vice versa.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. That's why we're here. So you guys are on the committee to write the ordinances. Okay, so you, Carlos, and Tina are writing the ordinances?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. You still want to do that, Tina? Okay. Anyone else want to join them on that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does that include, or is there some other ordinance somewhere else that explains how or why not to certain developers who buy or install art and then come to us after it's already installed and say, hey, can you approve this? I know that's happened in the last couple of the time that I've been here, and I think that's
part of the
something,
generic or general art ordinances that will need to be rewritten.
not these, but the general ones. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's the process that we have now. And if there's cleanup to happen, then this would be a good time to do that. Right now, developers are required to pay a fee, and if they want to include artwork on their property, they're also required to install the artwork and then request a reimbursement, so to replenish what they had already spent. So that's my understanding of how the ordinance works now for that. And so there is that burden on the developers to kind of pay twice.
The ordinances even suggest that the developers are supposed to come to the commission to inform where they want to put art before they do construction.
Can I ask
Which
a
doesn't
question?
happen.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm confused. First of all, I thought that this piece is about the ordinance that will add in this historic monuments versus the division. This is not about the general ordinance overall, which is a separate topic. Am I correct in that? That is not what these individuals are doing, is rewriting
No,
the whole set of ordinances.
You're correct, but it does affect the other one. Because what I said is they're going to write up the cultural, historic, what's the acceptable process, how do we welcome things into the collection, and how do we manage and maintain the collection. But we also need to look at, okay, by removing these, how will it impact the regular art ordinances, which we're going to be rewriting as well?
Okay, but this is just my opinion, I think that there's much broader questions that are not addressed just about when you pay your money and when you get your money back for developers, because there's lengths of project, there's where the art's placed, whether it's in a public right-of-way or in a private space, those
Yep.
still available to the public. There are a lot of questions
Yep.
that go into considering how you might want to change the ordinance and what might be considered, including the size of a project. A $10 million project versus a $400 million project, and whether or not a fee adjustment is appropriate across the board, or if it's a sliding scale, et cetera. So I think that the conversation about dividing our collection into these two categories and then writing up a set of ordinances as to how you evaluate where they go is very independent from talking about what a developer does. Because a developer is very unlikely to use funds to do a historical monument.
Exactly, that's the point, is this is really all about the cultural collection. And I was saying, as an aside, we will have to then redo the pieces for the art component as well. So I agree with you. The developers are not funding the cultural collection at all. These are city-generated pieces.
So is the purpose of this committee just to create those guidelines and then add them to the existing ordinances? Because I'm confused too, because you're suggesting that we're revamping the entire thing and then rewrite. So I was understanding that this committee was to create separate ordinances for the cultural component to add to the existing, but you're saying that it's pretty much reworking the whole thing to add that component in. Does that make sense?
No.
So, no. So you're suggesting that we revamp the entire ordinances with this arts and cultural component. We were understanding that this committee was just going to work on a separate thing to add separately to that. So it's like, how do I do this? Mixing versus adding to. So like, we're taking this new ingredient and putting it into the pot of the existing arts ordinances versus we're building something separate and then just attaching it to the new arts ordinances. Does that make sense?
It does, and let me give you a very tangible example.
Yeah.
So yes, it is all about the cultural collection. Yes, a cultural collection. Some of the pieces were previously part of the art thing, but we're going to make determinations on how these pieces are accepted. Whether or not the commission votes on this, we could variously say, anyone who wants to donate a piece to the cultural collection, you have to pay for installation. Okay? We know that's expensive. That's going to cost us $10,000 to install a piece. So if a local organization wants to give a piece, they have to pay for installation. We can put that in the ordinance. We then can, and my point was, we can mirror what we do because we're starting from scratch with the art one. Biggest challenge we're having is when people give gifts, right? So the gifts, like the Pride Monument or the Asa Memorial, those were designed. The Art Commission had no purview on the design or choosing the artist or anything. This was a gift. And so one could argue, depending on what the decision-making process that the commission determines is the best way for the cultural component is, why the Kennedy bust? Why is Kennedy bust cultural and not art? Well, because it was recognizing a moment. It was not a movement, it was not an artist's interpretation, there was nothing creative about it. Well, one could argue maybe the Pride Monument's the same way. It's recognizing a moment. It's not an artistic interpretation of that. I'm not saying I do, but that's a determination. Once you figure out how things are accepted, it will impact how things are accepted in the art collection as well.
So can I say something? They're separate, but these ordinances may impact the larger set of ordinances.
I think it's just kind of a domino effect. If
Yeah,
we start
exactly.
making new ordinances for this new collection, that's going to make us have to rethink the ordinances already in place because they're older, so they're not the same to the standard that we see them as today. So in changing the standards for the cultural collection, the other art collection has to be reconsidered just to ensure that it's held to the same standard.
And there's already an ordinance committee, right?
Right, and I'm not okay with the fact that somebody's writing the ordinances for how you distinguish a monument versus a piece of art and how it goes into a collection, having that same group rewrite our ordinances. Because there is a committee that's about looking at the ordinances.
Right, that's what's
in its
happening.
totality.
They're two separate groups of people. There may be some overlap, but there's two separate groups of ordinances. This is just for the cultural committee.
That's what I'm trying to clear up, because we're bringing
Yes.
in the whole thing about contractor donations, which, contributions,
No, no,
which
no,
has
what I'm
nothing
saying
to
is
do with doing this piece of work.
We have things that have happened to us over the past 5 years that the ordinances don't guide us on, and because they're outdated. And so if we have organizations that are donating things to the commission that we don't select the artist, we don't choose it, it's like, okay, this is a gift. And it's important, no one's denying that Pride is not important, but we didn't add an aesthetic value to it. We just accepted it. And so my point is, we can then change the arts ordinances based on specifics that we say within the cultural. And there'll be different people writing them, but we have to have consistency between them. And again, we're not writing it, we're making recommendations, and then the lawyer writes it. The lawyer has to ensure if everything we want to do matches code, matches the state. So we're just making recommendations on when we change these.
I'd like to go back to one thing you said, which I find very interesting, which is I think the individuals on the committee that are writing the ordinance, I think they have much deeper work in front of them. For example, a bust is often considered a piece of art. And so we're taking, in your perspective, the Kennedy bust as an example where you're saying it was a moment in time. I think that the committee who's going to be writing these ordinances has a lot of thinking to do about what really makes a cultural monument, because busts, carved busts, have been considered art throughout history.
Sure.
They're not just cultural monuments. You can go through any museum in Greece and see that. So I think that what I'm hearing is that these ordinances are really about how you make this distinguishment between things that come in front of this commission or things that are already in the collection as to how they get divided, how they get maintained, and how they get installed.
And that's what I'm saying, is we have to write the ordinances and the decision-making acceptance process before we can finalize the bifurcation of the collection. And again, we may say, no, we feel strongly that the Lucy sculpture downtown is cultural, and here's why. And then someone else will say, no, it's art, and it must stay in art. And ultimately, that'll be up to council.
Is it up to council, though, if the committee writes, here's how we evaluate where it fits, and then it's based on those set of criteria? Why would it then go to council if, in fact, the ordinance with its criteria is acceptable, and based on that, you make a distinguishment?
Council will approve everything we do. Everything will go to them, ultimately. Natasha?
So, like I said, I've been working a lot with other municipalities in regards to this, and I want to understand our role as a commission. As I understand it now, we are the Public Arts Commission. We're not the Public Arts and Cultural Commission. And in terms of culture, that is, you can't just equate it to what is art and what is not. Culture is a huge thing on its own. And also the categorization of what cultural assets are. As somebody who, I have extensive experience in cultural arts and asset mapping, once you start defining what is a cultural piece, then you have to go into, okay, what is the culture of the space? How does this fit into the culture of this community? It's a huge process, and so I want to know, as we are the Public Arts Commission, we are very distinct in what our responsibilities as a commission are in terms of public arts. And I completely understand your point in trying to separate the cultural component to the arts collection. However, I feel like we're kind of jumping forward a little bit too far. I feel like we really need to, if this is what we ultimately need to do, we need to define it officially that we are the Public Arts and Culture Commission, because to just throw culture in there is already going to add more work to what is already a lot of work for us as advisors to, volunteer advisors to the city. So my opinion is that maybe we should take a step back and just make this official first. Rename this Public Arts and Cultural Committee, then work on the ordinances, and then we can start that work.
We've had this conversation in private, so I appreciate that. I will say that a lot of cities have done this, so the framework is there.
Yes,
So-
but other cities also have dedicated departments with resources allocated to them in order to do this work. And like I said, the cultural component, it's not just like, oh, let's just do a cultural component. It's people, staff that actually have to sit down and really think about what it means to the greater community. The issue here is that, like you said, how are we going to define what pieces we accept? The trend now is not just accepting any piece from well-intentioned donors, to think about the larger issue of the cultural and impact of the community. And so my point is that that is a lot of work. And to just say, oh, we're just going to put the cultural part in it, I feel like that's really overlooking what it really means, what culture really means. And it's not just a, tangible piece, but
So let me
it's a,
ask you a question, because you're well aware of the pieces. Is the Section 14 marker a piece of art?
signs can be pieces of art. We have Scott Froshare, who specializes in his word on the street. And so his signs are considered pieces of art, and they have been shown in galleries. And so it could be a marker sign.
It could
that's-
be.
Yes.
You're hesitating, and yet it's a piece in our collection.
Yes.
And its importance isn't about its visual appeal. Its importance is about its cultural impact.
Its importance is also the message that it's conveying, and that marker signifies, as we all know, the importance of Section 14 and the history of the Agua Caliente. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
If I
It's-
could interject just for a second here, I agree with your weighting of the cultural element 100%. I think that's entirely a valid point to have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. But I feel like the main reason for the cultural collection is ultimately right now, until new pieces start to be added into our collection, is really to just sort two elements of what we already have in our collection, in the sense of, and I think this is a conversation we had maybe last meeting or something that I've heard, but in the sense of taking a piece like popsicles and placing it next to the Section 14 marker. They obviously have different weights to them. They are not even just described differently, but they have different historical elements to them in that sense. And I think what this is doing right now is sorting out our current collection. And I don't know if renaming the commission is really what this is pushing to do. I just think it's giving other pieces in our collection an actual identifier that makes them as important in a different way than that of the other pieces, if that makes sense.
I think that is a very good point. I think that it's about dividing between monuments, take out the word culture. It's about monuments versus art. I think that's where we started this conversation in our last meeting. It was around how do we divide out those pieces that are monuments versus how do we and categorize them as monuments.
Even though they may not all be monumental.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was saying I think that the research or the underpinning of making those divisions is about understanding points in time in the history of Palm Springs where monuments represented a point in time of the city. And I think that has to go into the thinking before the ordinance is written so that when it's defined, here's what makes a monument, it points to things like there was an event in the city or a major person visited. I'm just using the Kennedy bust as an example. I think that's an important distinction, though I think Natasha is correct. If we're going to be cultural, it's a much bigger thing than this division of what's in the collection currently.
I think that's also something to, I'm so sorry for cutting you off. I think that's also something to mention that in Palm Springs as a whole, I think art is inherently cultural. And I think by making it an art collection and a culture collection, I think that is almost redundant in a sense, because I think you can have a monument or something cultural to a specific historical point in time and it still have design elements that are a little bit more unique and, in a sense, artistic in a way. I agree with your point. I think maybe it shouldn't be a cultural collection. It might need to be the monuments of our collection instead, just because I think, in a way, if the pieces are out and they're in Palm Springs, they are cultural in their sense. Like pillars, all of those different words describe Palm Springs and the culture of Palm Springs and the way you can experience Palm Springs. And I personally would think they would belong in the art collection, but for what they stand for what it seems like we're discussing the definition of, they seem more cultural in that sense. So I think maybe it is more of a content on the naming of the collection and what exactly that means, which of course is something that the subcommittee would be deciding. But I think if we're going to be true to the verbiage of it, maybe it should be monuments and not cultural.
Oh, there's an issue.
Monument is it implies big.
And there's an issue with that too, because if we're going to go cultural collection, while I was taking inventory, especially in City Hall, there were dozens of pieces there that were given either as gifts from visiting dignitaries or when our elected officials visited other places and they were gifted artifacts and assets from wherever they visited. And so I didn't put them in the arts collection because they were not pieces of art, although someone could say they are.
Exactly. And,
So
and
will
anything
those
that's
be
in the
included in
collection
this?
is we can only use the money to maintain it from the Public Arts Collection Fund. And it has been accepted into the collection by council. So and my point is there are pieces that have been accepted into the collection that aren't really art. They're important to the city. So whether you call them cultural artifacts or whatever phraseology, that to me is irrelevant. It's let's look at the collection, figure out which pieces are more important to the history of the city than for their artistic value. And there is a lot of those pieces, if you look around. As I said, Section 14 is probably the most significant piece, but its importance gets lost because it's not a nice piece. It's just a block of granite. I mean, you described it as...
It's actually kind of just a rock with a plaque in it. I've walked past that placard so many times. It's down the way from Palm Springs High School. It's at the corner of, I believe, Ramon and Sunrise, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you're right. I think it definitely gets lost. I think if this is really a point of contention in the commission that this isn't that we don't agree on to that extent, I think maybe it's something to compare other cities, their versions of their arts and cultural components. What do they consider cultural components, or what, and compare and contrast that to what we have in our collection, which again, I guess is something that the subcommittee would also be doing. But I think if we had a more clear and concise understanding of what the cultural collection would mean for Palm Springs, I don't know. I think it's an odd thing for
I
sure.
think the danger here is, we're trying to define what art is, and so therefore removing them from the public arts. If we decide that the Section 14 marker isn't art, some people might consider it art. Some people think that the stone and steel sculpture that's currently in storage isn't art. It's just a bunch of steel and stones welded together. So are we going to be doing that, just defining what art is? And then if we do decide that as the Public Arts Commission, do we remove those pieces from the collection? Because like I said, I still don't feel comfortable in setting our commission being the decider of being the people to look after a cultural collection when we are the Public Arts Commission. So
And I respect that. That's something that's weighed on me. I take the inverse look at that. I think the Section 14 marker gets lost. No one knows it's there, no one talks about it, and its importance is lost. But if we did have whatever the phraseology is, a cultural collection, and we end up with maybe only 12 pieces in it, and they're pieces that are very important to the city, and it's promoted that way, and it's noted that way, all of a sudden its importance rises. The same thing with those plaques that are going in, I think, Francis Stevens Park about gay veterans, and that's important to the city. Gay tourism is a huge economic factor for economic development. We don't promote it. The city doesn't do anything about it. So if you had these sort of historical landmarks, if you will. So where I was headed is, what I would suggest is the people that want to start by crafting the ordinances is find what the ordinances have done in other cities. A lot of other cities have done this. So their ordinances are all online. You can find them on the city website. Take a look at how they divide. And we may change. And may say, oh, this is how they do it. This makes sense. Now, as I said, when this hit the Palm Springs Post, I had 2 different people reach out to me and say, I want to help you. I will tell you, yes, that is not art, that is cultural, and here's why. And they gave me the history to the pieces. And so I think once the group gets the ordinances from other cities together, we can have non-commissioners on the task forces. They don't get to vote, but they can guide you as experts. J. Thomas Nelson was just phased out as Historic Site Preservation Board. He said, I'll help you out any way you want me to. So the thing about Palm Springs is people love the history here, and they know it. You may not know it, I may not know it, but we can pull them as experts and help guide us. They won't be voting, they won't make decisions, but they can help push us in certain ways on the process of acceptability. Jim.
I have a comment and a question. I think it does become almost impossible because we enter a universal debate if we start trying to define what is art and what is not art. And yet, looking at the assets of this city that are under our responsibility, I believe I can recognize what is art and what is in another category, which currently is called monuments. I don't agree as strongly that the term monuments implies monumental in size or in importance, but I can see how some people might interpret it that way, and it would seem then to be not a accurate description of this other category. But perhaps add to the word monuments a couple of other words, and it could be art, and then it could be monuments, markers, and commemoratives or commemorations. Because those are the things that you've named that they seem to be markers or commemoratives that fit into that second category. That's the comment. My question is, why do these guidelines need to be articulated as legislation or statutes in the city? Could they not be guidelines that we promulgate, and they don't have to be law that are approved by the council the way that laws are, but instead become internal guidelines for our categorizing of these assets under our responsibility, and the council gives us the authority to observe these guidelines.
I would look at what the other cities have done.
I almost want to say it might just be because of adding new pieces in the future and that process. I'm not sure. I don't know. I almost want to suggest that the name of the collection is temporary until the guidelines are written. And then when we have an actual understanding of what we want to continue this subcategory to be, that's when we can decide a different name for this other part of the collection. A temporary name could be a monument collection or a cultural collection or whatever we want it to be for now. But when those guidelines are understood as to what these two separate understandings are, similarly to how you were saying, the idea that you can look at what we have in our collection, and there are definitely two different, if you put, like I said before, popsicles in the Section 14 marker, they are very staunchly different. I think when the consideration and approval process is at least put to an extent that we as a commission can go, we can all agree on this, or this all makes sense, or whatever it is, then I think we can reinterpret what the name should be of the collection, if that makes sense.
And I want to come back. I just looked up the definition. I mean, we're going round and round about, I don't think we can define art, but we can define a monument.
Yeah.
At least. Here's a couple of
my point.
dictionary definitions. A statue, building, or other structure or item erected to commemorate a famous or notable person or an event or a time.
Yeah.
And I think that is really what we're discussing. Based on where we started this conversation, it was about pieces that represented
Yep.
those items. And I think using that as a definition, we're basically saying what's a monument within our collection, and everything else is in our art collection. It's not trying to define art in any way. We're trying to define what is a monument within our overall collection. That's how I hear what we've
We're
been
just
doing.
classifying things differently.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
determining what is art.
And we're not
yes.
losing any pieces, we're just moving them over a marker.
And can I make
You
a
know, so let me, again, as I said, we've got these, and when you look deep into the collection, you're thinking, how was that accepted? The gates at the dog park are part of the public arts collection. So we are responsible for maintaining these gates that are a mess. And to do that, that requires a specific art maintenance approach. Are gates to the dog park public art? I don't know. That's not my point. So we need to take a hard look at the collection. And I believe, whether it's called the cultural collection, the monument collection, the signifier collection, I don't care. And I truly believe it will elevate the pieces that you're pulling aside. You're not pulling them out. You're just saying, look at these, and they will really define the history of the city if you look at them that way. Okay?
It's an intellectually challenging exercise, and I think that we might make it easier for ourselves if we don't believe that the end goal is to come up with legislation that we advise the council to adopt. Legislation is a heavier lift than administrative guidelines that we simply ask for permission or authority to ourselves adhere to.
So reviewing the ordinances is going to be Tina? Anand, are you on that one? Yeah. Okay. So someone,
Gross.
Tina, whoever, well, you guys pull up ordinances of other cities, take a look at how they do it, and then it will guide you from now.
As we do this work, Gary, are we able to call on the city council? That costs money. How do we engage city
Can't involve
legal advice?
council in this. They cannot give you their opinion one way or the other until it gets an agenda on their item.
I have an additional question, and forgive me if this is something I should know. Sort of building off what Commissioner Kibbe said about how we will likely be defining not art, but rather what is a monument. It sounds like the work of these two subcommittees are very innately intertwined, deeply intertwined. I was wondering, and again, I am a new commissioner, so maybe I don't know, how much are we allowed to talk to each other? Is it something where we come here and
Are
they
these
say,
under the purview
oh,
of the Brown Act, right?
Yeah, so how are,
What I
how
would
are we?
suggest is, again, you pull the ordinances, maybe at the next meeting, or maybe you need 2 meetings, then you come make a presentation on your findings. Here's what we found, here's how other cities divide, here are the requirements they have. And then that will help generally, knowing acceptability. Of course, you'll have to change because we're a very specific city. It will then help the other task force, because they're going to start, well, here's what's in our collection. How do we deal with that?
Based on your guidelines, how do
we set Yeah. the
collection?
Yeah, I wanted to, get clarification
has to
on
be
this because
consistent.
because it's so intertwined, and I feel like that also might, figuring out how we will be approaching this will also help the other committee that is handling the broader overview of the arts ordinance.
Correct.
Because that is what this initial question was. So, I just wanted some
And
clarity.
I think it was you who said that it's not about, the ordinances aren't about the pieces that we have now. Once this collection is defined, we're going to get people wanting to donate. And we need to have the requirements in place before that happens. Okay?
And Mr. Chairman,
Okay, we're running late and I want to keep going.
I just want to clarify, when I made the reference to city council, I didn't mean the city made up of its council members.
Okay.
I meant, how can we involve the city's legal counsel, the legal office, rather than going ourselves and trying to research law, just say, could you give us a packet, please? But that costs money.
We
How
will
do do
get
that?
legal involved, but that'll be down the road. So again, the first step is to pull in the other cities' ordinances to look at, become very familiar with our ordinances on the accepting process, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so it's Tina, Janan, and Carlos. Are you going to stay on that?
Yeah.
Okay. And Camry, so it'll be the 4 of you? 3. I'm not on. Oh, you're not on that one? Are you sure you don't want to?
I'm good.
Okay, good.
Can I be on both?
Okay.
Or do I have to just be on one?
I'm sorry?
Can I be on both, or do I have to choose between them?
I think you can be on both. I mean, as I said, one's going to lead, one can't do the first, you can't make the decision what goes in if you haven't determined what the boundaries are, right? But we only really can have 4 on the committee for the task force.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, because I think the question was about procedure, that subcommittees are different than in the Brown Act. Maybe clarifying for the new commissioners why subcommittees can meet and discuss things, and to bring them back to the overall commission. I think that was the question.
Yeah, so you shouldn't discuss anything that reaches a quorum. So if you have 4 people on your subcommittee, you shouldn't discuss it with anybody else if they're not on the subcommittee, unless you discuss in a meeting.
Commissioners, subcommittees are also subject to Brown Act. But if we call this an ad hoc subcommittee, it would not have as strict rules as the other Brown Act commissions, meaning posting of meetings, but it would have to terminate at some point. Ad hoc committees have a specific role, and then when that role is fulfilled, they terminate.
I mean, my question was purely about procedure, but also it seemed largely that our disagreement could have been resolved if we knew this procedure, and we could also table some aspects of this conversation as well, because I think some of what we were talking about was almost putting the cart before the horse. We hadn't even looked into the ordinances yet. I think these are all very important questions, but I think this will be a very long process. And so figuring out how might we talk to each other and what potential processes we can have in place. I sort of wanted to know that procedure to hopefully make these future conversations easier. Does that make sense?
With your respective groups, as you're organized, you can discuss within your group, because it will be 4 or fewer members, and that would not be a quorum of the full commission. But that's within the groups. Once you start discussing items outside of that group, then you're at risk of violating the Brown Act by having 5 commissioners discuss an item.
So to be clear, this ad hoc committee would not need to schedule a formal meeting that would be subject to the public discretion through you, Jay?
That's correct.
Okay.
So it's the 4 of you. I can't even talk to you about it except in meetings. So Tina, Carlos, Natasha, and Janan.
And can you remind me which group that is?
That's for the ordinances of the cultural collection or monument collection or,
That would be for Committee 2, write up the consideration and approval process of new pieces to be considered.
Thank you. And we'll refer to it as ad hoc committee.
very good. Discuss next steps for art ordinance review. As I mentioned, we met with Chris and with Wayne, and they're going to deal with the numbers components for us. And then we will be starting the meeting again, and at that time, it was Natasha, Jim, Lori, and myself. Natasha, are you going to be able to be on both?
You're talking about these two,
Regular art ordinances.
the regular art ordinances? It depends on when we decide to meet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Commissioners, do we have a team set for committee
1.
1?
We're going to hold off on that
Okay.
until
okay.
we get more direction from the other ordinance group. And Natasha, you'll be able to do this, the regular art one as well?
For now, yes.
Okay.
I just need at least 2 weeks
So I will
notice.
have Jay set up a follow-up on that one, okay? Last item to discuss and approve is rescheduling the October 2nd meeting as it conflicts with Yom Kippur.
Sorry again, Mr. Chair, can we confirm all the members for item number 2, discuss next steps for arts ordinance review?
So it's Natasha, Tina, Carlos, and Janan.
But that is under committee 1, right?
Yeah, but it's really committee 2. It's the
Okay.
ordinance component, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's for the entire ordinance, correct?
No, that's for the cultural ordinance.
Okay, so for item number 2, discuss next steps for
Oh, that's
arts.
the art ordinance review?
Right,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So that one is Jim, Lori, Natasha, and myself.
thank you.
And we'll need you to set up a follow-up meeting for that one, for the 5 of us.
4? Oh, 5, including.
Including you.
Okay.
Discuss rescheduling the October 2nd meeting as it conflicts with Yom Kippur. And Jay, what are our options?
Okay, so as you know, we have our new large conference room next door, but the availability, it looked a little too good, so I'm going to have to give you these dates and then double check. Because some meetings may have been taken off the calendar, just kind of anticipation of the closure.
Why don't we
So,
give you 2 dates that work, and then you can,
okay. Thursday, October 9. Thursday, October 23rd.
I'm good for both those days.
Both of those days work for me as well.
Mitchell,
Same.
Does work or doesn't?
it does.
The 9th and the 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay, 9th and the 23rd? 9th, 20, you're not? You can do the 9th? You can do the 9th? Okay, let's go for the 9th.
Okay, I will confirm the actual availability once we get more information on that new room.
And then it's back up, it'll be the 23rd. Commissioner Kibbe won't be here, but we'll have everybody else, unfortunately. I don't mean unfortunately, we have everybody else. Yeah, let's do the 9th. Only because we're then going to have a meeting 2 weeks later on this, yeah, it's like, yeah.
Okay.
Next item, White Mural update. Any updates from the lawyer, Jay?
We discussed this at the last meeting, that we had clearance to move forward with the Wyatt mural. So if it is to become a project, we can discuss it as a project and how to approach it. John, did you have any additional information on the Wyatt mural? I don't know if, the grant application, et cetera, if we're going after another one.
Yes.
I had a couple calls with Jack Forbes today. She is working, I'm blanking on the name of the grant right now. I can look back at my notes. She's identified a grant for us that she's going to be using the same letter of intent for the state grant that we applied for. She's working on getting that in tonight. I believe the deadline is today, but I received another email my way over here that we might need to partner with a 501c3 unless the city can take that directly. If not, we can maybe identify.
You know what? I read further down that, and it said a city was also eligible to apply. But I think it did say matching funds would be needed.
I'd asked that, and she was going to look for further clarification. I know it was up to 75,000, but yeah, waiting on further clarification for matching funds.
So, commissioners, when we have more information on the status of the grant, perhaps we can further discuss making it a project and how to approach it, unless, of course, you would like to just do that independently without concerning the funds, which is your prerogative, obviously.
And just as background for the new commissioners, is we approved these funds 3 years ago, I think, 3 years ago. But when the Art Commission approves funds, it's artist-specific. It's not project-specific. And the artist passed away, so the whole process has to start again. On top of the fact, it was intended to be a tile mural on the entire side of the wall, and at the time, the budget was $284,000. But I guarantee you, it's easily $500 to do that side right now. So whether we move forward as a tile mosaic, or if we go through as a painted mural is going to be at least $100,000. That's a massive wall. So the whole process has to start again. Next, beautiful shade. Jay. This is all Jay's stuff.
Right. So
And you can do Artscape together, because they're all joined.
Sure. So we reported that the Parkside Gossip contract had been executed at our last meeting. At this point, we also have the Dragonfly Shade Bench also executed. And we are working on how to bring in a contractor for the bases. And part of that relates to an item coming up at City Council on the 10th, wherein there's a request to have the Measure J funds utilized to help pay for some of these park benches, park installations, so.
And that was a meeting in July that Jay and I went to, and I sold my soul to get us this money, and they unanimously approved it. Even the beginning of the meeting, they weren't going to, but I tricked them. But afterwards, I had a long conversation with the chair of Measure J, and we both agreed there's a lot of ways for our commissions to work together. And that they all see, and really, public art is at the heart of what Measure J is supposed to be, which is community enhancement. And the point I made was, we will have 6 pieces of art in 6 city parks within a month. If we get this money, the pieces are done. They will be installed within a month. And so I think there are ways that we can work together with them, maybe with the signage issue that we had. Maybe we could go to Measure J about helping fund the mosaic for the Wyatt mural. I'm not sure. I don't want Measure J to be used as a kitty that we just go to whenever we go over budget. It should be strategic. And, as I said, much like the ordinances, it's not about now, it's about 5 years, the next commission, and we need to be sure that we're doing things the appropriate way. So fingers crossed, I'll be at the council meeting next week. Again,
Mr. Chairman, will there be,
asking for my money.
congratulations, will there be ribbon cuttings at each of these shade structure debuts?
I'm sorry?
Will there be a ribbon cutting or some
Well,
ceremonial?
there will be dedication ceremonies. Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah. And, art maintenance inventory. Is there anything to update?
The only thing right now is that when we sat in that council or that consulting meeting for the cultural
Designation.
designation district, and the asset map was submitted to the city, and they're going to be using that as a part of their application to get the cultural district designation. So that's an update. Right now, for me, I'm currently taking all of the information from the map and trying to put it in an Excel sheet so that we will submit that to the city so that there's an actual document that has all of the information, the location, the state of the art pieces. And right now I'm also trying to track down the stated values of some of the art pieces. I did uncover some pieces in City Hall and at the airport, and I'm trying to figure out what their stated value is and when they were inducted into the collection. So I've been contacting artists and then also trying to slog my way through decades of records of city council meetings to try and find where they approved the acceptance of these art pieces. And so it's been a lot of work. So if any other commissioners want to help me maybe pick a decade and just sort through all of those meeting notes, and then once I find those, then I bother Jay and be like, hey, do you have any more information on these pieces? So that's where I am right now. It's a lot of work. So
Jay, maybe 2 years ago, we approved $25,000 to hire an art evaluator. Do we ever hire an art evaluator, or do we just like lose the money?
The art evaluator withdrew at the time because of other controversial artwork being removed from the front of City Hall.
So are we going to get another art evaluator, or are we going to get that money back to the collection?
It's holding a spot, Mr. Chair. If you would like to proceed with going out with another RFP for an art evaluator for $25,000, we can definitely do that.
Let's put that on an agenda for October.
Perhaps,
Because theoretically, if we had an art evaluator under contract, they could look at the pieces in the collection, you know, because the value is for insurance reasons. It's not the
So-
real value.
are you talking about an evaluator or an appraiser? Because like they're
It was
different.
an appraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like as I understand it, the funds were used for what I'm doing now, basically cataloging the inventory, and then they withdrew. So
The item was put in because we were purchasing a piece of art, and then council member felt that the art wasn't as valuable as the artist was selling it for. Get an it's not even an appraiser, it was an evaluator or something, you know, they didn't appraise the quality of it. It was, is this artist have artwork of this value? Anyway, my point was we could then get them to look at certain pieces and say, yes, this is worth, but it's not. So let's table that until October.
Commissioner, I would be happy to help you with going through the decades. I don't have experience in art evaluation, but I can dig through paperwork.
it's not about evaluating the art. It's just finding out when the piece was accepted into the collection, how much that piece was valued. Because obviously a piece that was accepted 20 years ago would either go up or down in value due to factors like if it's, the different factors. So it's all about just finding the value as when it was put into the collection. And then as we said, later on, we're going to bring in somebody to actually assess the current value of the piece and the actual value of the collection. So yeah, it's just reading a lot of reports.
You can put my name down for that as well.
Thank you.
So are one of you going to help her out? You're going to help her out? Excellent. You both are? Very good. Hopefully she'll start smiling now. She's doing a lot of work. She needs help. Okay, next is the art of taming horses. Jay just gave me the contact info, and Janan, you said you wanted to shadow me on that, so I'll keep you CC'd on everything as we move forward on that. The issue that we do have is when we met with the community, they wanted to do something on the walkway bridge going over the wash. They have not figured out who is responsible for that bridge yet. No one in the city is claiming responsibility for it. You know? Okay, because the impact team had no clue who was responsible for that bridge.
We had a meeting last week with.
Great, okay.
Is theirs, that is their property.
The bridge.
Yeah, that entire easement, everything.
'Cause we knew that the area is floodplain control. They gave us clearance to put the pieces in place.
Gotcha.
They have to be a certain number of feet from the curb. And then, but the walkway bridge, floodplain wouldn't have put that in.
Understood. Yeah, so let me clarify that and find out. I'll reach out.
Because the impact team was looking who, and they said Public Works had no clue, facilities had no clue who.
Are we talking about who has jurisdiction over where the art pieces are going?
No, because if we wanted to put a mural on the walkway bridge, they didn't know who could do that, who could give approval.
Who has jurisdiction over that?
No one knows. No one knows.
I'll reach out to Riverside County Flood and report back.
And Christie and the impact team was looking into that.
Gotcha. I've been working with her on that.
Okay, good, yeah.
County.
So, patience, remember he said patience. Okay. Pride Monument. Pride Monument has broken ground in Francis Stevens Park, and they should have it installed soon, and they're, just FYI, and there will be a dedication ceremony when that does happen, and I know that's tied to Pride, and Pride this year in Palm Springs is a week later. It is not the first weekend in November, it's the second weekend in November. And as an aside, the AIDS Memorial, Philip K. Smith contacted me, and he will be making some announcements about their next steps as well. Okay. And then the last one is the Airport Art Curator Selection. So this is something, the new commissioners do not know about this. The Airport Commission and airport staff have hired a curator to curate the artwork in the airport. There's two things happening here. One is we have, I think it's 12 or 13 pieces in the airport already.
I can't remember. I could pull it up if you want the exact numbers.
I think it's, let's say 14, 15, just roughly. 7 of them are part of the museum, and they're being refurbished, and then they're leaving. That was part of the agreement with the museum, so they're going to be moving on. And so the Airport Commission has hired a team to curate art and rotate it. Jim was part of the blind selection committee who reviewed their work, and then they voted and they hired. They have now reached a contract on that team. So there is a meeting that was supposed to be on September 17th, but it was moved this afternoon. And this will be not about selecting the art. And what will happen is there will be a selection committee, and there will be 2 commissioners from the Art Commission on that selection committee. Right now, they do not think there will be any art to be selected or presented for probably 6 to 9 months, as how this team works. Okay? And they don't know how often it's going to be installed. Is it going to be every 6 months, every year? They don't know that yet. The agency that's doing this work has signed a 3-year contract. In it, they said their first year should be planning, and there's pushback on that. They said, no, you should come in with some suggestions very quickly. So I will know more after the meeting I have in 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and we'll talk that thing. I'm still not sure how the art commissioners are going to participate. I have no interest. I think it's a great opportunity for all the commissioners to get experience doing these things. But it seems to me that art commissioners and airport commissioners cycle through and term out, and there's always a new voice and a new vision. And if you have somebody who's doing the work, you're saying, oh, I want to do it, but there's a very specific day of when the evaluation has to happen, and then you're not available on that day, sort of screws things up. So I haven't figured out yet, do we not decide who it is until we know the specific evaluation date? Do we have one person and then have a backup? You know, so there's a lot of variables in this. As I said, we don't know when the evaluations are going to be. We don't know how frequently they're going to be. We don't know how long the artwork's going to be up. We don't know, maybe there's two cycles at the same time. So when that happens, I will come back and report to you on what's going to happen. But just know, there has been no art selection yet, and it may not be for a year. Could be 6 months. Okay. Any questions on that?
You know who was selected?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what art advisor curator was selected?
I don't know their name, but when I get it, I'll give it to you.
Group Creative Services,
They're based in the Midwest.
Des Moines.
This project has the potential to be quite exciting because my understanding is that the works that are in the airport are under our responsibility as well. They're part of the public art collection. But they're given a leeway and authority of their own as the airport commission because it is their space. But they wanted us to be involved in the selection of the curating company, and they want us to continue to be involved now in the follow-up, which I understand was going to be more than simply evaluating works of art and going in, but really being the partners and the overseers of what the curating company does.
And as I said, the specifics on that, and look, we've all worked with agencies and their billable hours and how it's going to go, so we'll see how this happens. I do know there were some contract snags because there were things that were not put in the contract, like lighting.
I heard in a phone call that the potential rescheduled date is the 24th. Did you say that that might change again?
Yeah, that's Rosh Hashanah. Fine for me, but I don't know if you want to have meetings on
But the ambition of the project as well is, their vision, as I understood it, is when the airport does expand, with its new buildings and facilities, there will be more spaces identified to place
Let's stay focused on what they're doing now. And on top of that, there still will be pieces of the collection in the airport. So we do still have some pieces.
True. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Any commissioner agenda requests and comments? I will remind you that we cannot discuss them because the specifics aren't agendized. But if there's something you would like to discuss at the next meeting, you can mention it and Jay will make note and then we'll go in the next meeting. Right now, I believe we're going to have another presentation. We are going to have two different communities that want to come and get us to fund some artwork for them in October. And anything else?
I would just like to confirm whether or not Subcommittee 2 will be reporting back on their findings during that next meeting, or...
You guys tell me how quickly you can get stuff done.
Okay.
Even if we'll put it as an agenda update.
As a potential agenda update.
It may not be
Okay.
a full presentation, but hey, we pulled them from these 3 cities and we're going to look for more.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And question, do we have to meet in person to meet in the subcommittee, or can we discuss alternative arrangements? Just because I'm traveling a lot.
I think alternative is fine.
Anything else for requests or comments? Jay,
Mr. Chair, quickly, I believe we did not vote on moving the date from October 2 to October 9th with October 23rd as a backup. Can we?
but you don't know if those are available, so are we just voting on the theory of them?
On 10/9 is the date,
Okay.
and October 23rd is the backup.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
We have to vote? Would someone like to make a motion that we move our next meeting to October 9th? And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to October 23rd.
I'd like to make a motion to move our October meeting from October 2nd to October 9th with October 23rd as a backup.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Aye.
Jay, anything else to report?
Measure J, Pride Monument, AIDS Monument. In efforts to install the AIDS monument, the artist is evaluating potentially using different materials to lighten the artwork. And Commissioners, I'm curious to know if you would like that to come back to you for review, or if you're okay with the artist's changing the materials. The design, I believe, would still be very much the same.
Which piece is this?
AIDS Memorial, Phillips project.
I think the question is if the change in material will fundamentally change the actual appearance of the piece itself. I think if the artist feels that it won't fundamentally change it, then that's a different story. But that might be something that the commission might want to just approve shortly and move on with.
So I'm aware of what the change is. And my first thought was, well, we're not funding it, and we were emotional impact of it. We weren't saying, oh, we like this stone, it has to be this stone. I think it'd be a different thing if it was something we were funding. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, it's just a report item. John, I don't know if you had anything to add. It's very early in the process, and he may end up using something very similar to what was proposed initially anyways, so.
I don't think it's a bad idea to have him come and present it so it becomes public. I don't think we would necessarily vote to not approve it, but use it as a public information.
Presentation.
I would definitely like to know what material they're considering.
Yeah, just to kind of see it. Or if-
He has maquettes made up.
Okay.
Do you need something?
Well, that would also be part of the director's staff report, to see if Mr. Brickley does have any additional information to add. He's been working on some of our projects, and it's been very helpful. Anything, John?
I'll stay up here this time. Just briefly, I did meet with Philip Smith a couple weeks back on site to discuss what's going to be required for the install. The current way of the structure requires further evaluation. So he had also said during that time they were looking at, it wouldn't change the intent, it would still look essentially the same. It might just be a different amount of light reflected. And I know Gary's aware, but I believe he said it was polished, like a highly polished aluminum is what he's looking at to help bring down the weight. That sounds correct to you, I believe.
My only concern would be between the wind and sand and a polished aluminum, the effect on that, pitting and other things. So I think that thinking about the long-term effect of the environment that it's in would change from what it was previously. I think that's something that just needs to be understood.
Yeah, just because we're not paying for the piece now, that doesn't mean we're not paying for its upkeep later. That might be something we might want to approve just to see how it weathers.
Sounds good. I'll reach out and get some clarification on that and report back.
And I would just add, John has had the Pride Monument base installed, so it's looking good.
With the base down, what is the expected timeline? Do we have that, or are we still waiting on other components of it?
Mid-October, kind of second weekend in October before Pride, and we're looking to have the piece craned in if all holds the schedule. So the pad's poured, it's in place. The plan is to truck it in, bring it in on a crane, and drop it in, and then secure it in place. So delivery at this point, once it's here, should be pretty straightforward and pretty quick.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pride is November 14th and 15th this year, I think. Or wait, is it no, sorry, 7th and 8th. It should be done at least by the last week of October. Anything else, Jay?
Nothing more, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, thank you.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
You have to read the script.
Oh, okay.
But it's October 9th or 23rd.
So I just read the script? Okay. The Public Arts Commission will adjourn to a meeting on October 9th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the large conference room of Palm Springs City Hall located at 3200 East Tockwitz Canyon Way.
I'd like to second.
I'd like to second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.